This video is an overview of the Localization Framework feature for streamlining the translation of ServiceNow product content to other languages. This video is mostly for people who fulfill translation requests. It also touches on making requests, approving translations, and administration for Localization Framework. You can jump to these topics from the YouTube description for this video. Localization Framework supports each step in the translation process. A person who's creating or managing ServiceNow content, like service catalog items, can easily request translation to another language. The request is passed to a fulfiller who can translate the page manually, use machine translation, or send it out to a translation service. When the translation is ready, it gets sent to an approver. When it's approved, the translated content is added to the product. As of the Quebec release, Localization Framework supports service catalog items and virtual agent topics by default, and you can extend it to other types of content. Let's see how it works. Here we want to translate a service catalog item. We request translation, and here are the languages we can request. We can request more than one language. Submitting the request creates a translation task for each language. Now we're logged in as the fulfiller who's going to provide the translation. Here are the translation tasks we just created for French and German. Let's open the German task. We'll go to the translation form with the original language on the left and the translation language on the right. Some of the text may already be translated. You can unlock that text to change the translation if you want. There are a few different ways to translate the text. For one, we can translate manually, or we can use machine translation. We're using Microsoft Translator, but your administrator can change to a different one. We can check the translation and change it if we want. And if it looks okay, we can submit it for approval. Or we can use a translation service. Localization Framework supports XTM and SDL, and your company can build connectors to any other TMS. Here we're using XTM, but your administrator can change that. When XTM returns the translation, the text will be added to the form fields automatically. We can also export the text for translation by a third party. For this demo, let's export as CSV. Here's the exported file, with the fields on the page, the original text, and the translation. The translator will complete the third column. When the translator returns the file to us, we go back into the task and import the file. And here's the translated text, automatically added to the right fields. We can see there's one place where the translator changed some text that was already translated. Down here. We can compare the two versions and choose the one we want. We can also send the text to a third-party translator by email. We'll enter the address, choose the same CSV file type we saw before, and send. When the translator sends the completed file back in a reply, the text will be added to the form fields automatically. Just so you know, your administrator can configure all these translation methods for each language in the Localization Framework settings. Once the text is translated, the next step is to submit it for approval. And now the state is awaiting approval. Now we're logged in as Beth, one of the translation approvers. Let's check the translation. That takes us to the comparison form we saw earlier. We can change the text manually, or we can send a request to the translator, like "Please verify." For this demo, the translation looks fine, so we're going to approve it. The way our workflow is set up for this demo, approving the translation will also publish it. By the way, the translation workflow for each language is in the Localization Framework settings. Your administrator can choose from lots of different workflows, including fully automatic translation and publishing. Now that we've published our translation, the state of the task is closed complete. Now, whenever a user opens this service catalog item, it'll be available in German. Finally, let's take a quick look at the Localization Insights dashboard for Localization Framework administrators. It shows us a summary of the translation status for both service catalog items and virtual agent topics. For example, here we can see that 110 of our catalog items have been translated to French, 120 are partially translated, and 185 haven't been translated yet. This chart shows the language preferences of the users in our instance. For example, here we can see that English is the preferred language for 25% of our users. We can get more details right from the chart. For example, if we go to Catalog Items and click French, Partially Translated, we get a list of the partially translated items. Here's an easy way to request multiple translations. We'll select the items we want to translate, then choose Request Translations down here, and confirm. Now the translations can be completed and approved just like we saw before. Altogether, Localization Framework helps you request, fulfill, approve, and publish translations of ServiceNow content. For more information, see our product documentation, knowledge base, or podcast, or ask a question in the ServiceNow community.